This table's for blood family. Go find a spot near the dumpster. My golden sibling humiliated me at the party I bankrolled. Now he's locked up, crying for support. Be me, 29 years old. Typing this on mobile, so apologies for the formatting. So 6 years ago, my wife Madison just vanished. Not kidnapped, not in an accident. Just gone. Yeah, I know how this sounds, but hear me out. Because this could happen to anyone. We'd been married 5 years when it happened. Met in college, did the whole traditional thing. Dated for 3 years, got engaged. Had a decent wedding that her parents mostly paid for. Nothing crazy, just normal millennial couple stuff. I work in logistics for a regional shipping company. She was doing some freelance graphic design stuff. Nothing steady or serious, but I had no problem with that. Our marriage was solid, like genuinely good. We had our routines. I'd handle the finances and household maintenance. She'd manage social stuff and keep track of our schedules. Madison never complained about me wanting to know where our money went or asking about her day. Actually seemed to appreciate that I cared enough to stay involved in our life together. Look, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't protective of what we had. Call it old-fashioned, but I believe marriage means something. I kept track of our spending because financial problems kill relationships. I knew her passwords because secrets poison trust. I paid attention to who she talked to and where she went, because that's what caring husbands do. Madison never had an issue with any of it. Said it made her feel secure. We were planning kids, looking at bigger apartments, talking about our future like couples do when everything's working. She'd cook dinner while I worked on our budget spreadsheets. We'd watch Netflix together most nights, go out with other couples on weekends. Normal, stable, boring life that I thought we both wanted. April 2019, right when everything was getting crazy economically. Everything changed in one night. And it started over something completely stupid. I'd been reviewing our credit card statements like I did every month. Just basic financial management, making sure we weren't overspending or missing any fraudulent charges. That's when I noticed some weird purchases I couldn't account for. Uber Eats orders during work hours when Madison always brought lunch from home. Coffee shops I'd never heard of in parts of town she had no reason to visit. Random stuff that didn't match her usual routine. When I got home from work, I brought it up to her casually. Just asked about the charges. Figured there was some simple explanation. Maybe work lunches she'd forgotten to mention. Or she'd grabbed coffee with friends and didn't think to tell me about it. No big deal. But she got defensive immediately. Started saying I was being paranoid and treating her like a child who couldn't spend money without permission. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her. I just wanted to understand where our money was going, especially with all the economic uncertainty hitting everyone. Everyone was talking about layoffs and budget cuts. Seemed smart to keep track of expenses. I told her if she wanted to keep spending like this, maybe she should get a real job instead of whatever freelance nonsense she was calling work. Wrong thing to say, apparently. That's when she really lost it. Started screaming about how I was calling her worthless and didn't respect her entrepreneurial spirit. Said I was paranoid and exhausting, and that she couldn't breathe in our marriage. Her exact words were, "You're freaking suffocating me. And I'm done pretending this is normal." And calling my work freelance nonsense, screw you. I don't need some boring logistics guy telling me what real work looks like. I wasn't planning on starting a fight or taking things too far. So I tried to calm her down, explain that I was just being responsible, but she cut me off. You know what? I can't live like this anymore. Stormed off to the bedroom and slammed the door so hard. I sat on the couch for hours, completely stunned. We'd had disagreements before, but nothing like this. The way she looked at me, like I was some kind of monster, instead of her husband who cared about our future together. I kept replaying the conversation, trying to figure out where it went wrong. How asking about credit card charges turned into her calling me a psycho. And yeah, the "get a real job" comment was probably a low blow. But the way she went nuclear told me this wasn't really about credit card charges. Apparently, she'd been building up resentment for way longer than I realized. Eventually I went to bed. Figured we'd talk it out in the morning, like adults. She was already asleep, or pretending to be, with her back turned to me. I barely slept, just kept thinking about what she'd said, wondering if I really was being unreasonable. Next morning I woke up around 6:30 for my usual routine, and her side of the bed was cold. Figured she'd left early for work, maybe still pissed about our fight. Didn't think much of it, but when I got home that evening, her car wasn't in the driveway. Weird, since she always beat me home. Walked inside calling her name. Nothing. That's when I started noticing things were off. Her purse wasn't by the door. Laptop wasn't on the kitchen counter where she always left it. Went to check the bedroom, and that's when it hit me. The closet was half empty. Her clothes, shoes, jewelry box, all gone. Even the expensive watch I bought her for our anniversary. But she left her wedding ring on the dresser, like she was returning it to the store. I called her cell immediately. Straight to voicemail. Tried texting. Messages weren't even delivering. Called her work the next morning. They said she'd called in sick. By day 3, they said she hadn't shown up or called at all. I started calling everyone we knew. Her best friend Kelly acted weird on the phone. Said she hadn't heard from Madison, but wouldn't make eye contact when I went to her apartment. Her college roommate claimed she was out of town, but couldn't say where. Everyone had the same sketchy energy, like they knew something I didn't. Her parents were the worst call. Had to explain to her mom that Madison had vanished. Watch her break down crying on FaceTime, asking what happened, what we'd fought about. They drove up from 2 states away, helped me search the apartment for clues, any indication of where she might have gone. That's when we found the empty safe. Madison had cleaned out the emergency cash we kept hidden. About $20,500 that was supposed to be for actual emergencies. Her dad found withdrawal slips from ATMs I'd never seen before, dating back weeks before she left. After a full week of dead ends, and her work threatening to fire her for no-shows, I finally filed a missing person report. The cops were basically useless. Adult woman left voluntarily with her belongings. No signs of foul play. They made some calls, checked hospitals. It went through the motions, but told me there wasn't much they could do. Her parents were as shocked as I was, swear she'd never mentioned being unhappy or wanting space. But the more we dug, the more obvious it became. That she'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. I kept thinking there had to be more to it. You don't orchestrate an elaborate escape plan just because your husband asked about some credit card charges. If she really felt that suffocated, why not just ask for marriage counseling? Why not bring up divorce like a normal adult? Instead of disappearing like some kind of fugitive. The whole thing felt insane. We'd had one fight and she torched our entire life together. Either I was living with a complete stranger for 5 years, or there was way more going on than I knew about. But that's when the real nightmare started. Everyone kept asking what I'd done wrong, like it was automatically my fault that my wife bailed on our marriage. Friends, family, everyone assumed I must have driven her away somehow. What was the fight about? They'd ask. When I explained it was about credit card charges, I could see it in their eyes. Judgment, like I was some controlling freak who couldn't let his wife buy a coffee without interrogation. Nobody wanted to hear that I was just trying to be responsible with our finances. Her friends started avoiding me. Couples we used to hang out with, stopped inviting me to things. I could feel people whispering, making assumptions about what kind of husband I must have been. For my wife to just vanish, the isolation was almost worse than losing her. Work became my only escape. Threw myself into shipping schedules and logistics reports, anything to keep my brain busy. But even there, people treated me differently once word got out. Like I had some kind of domestic violence cloud hanging over me. Even though I'd never laid a hand on Madison in my life, the worst part was the uncertainty. Was she okay? Was she coming back? Had she been planning this for weeks, months? How long had she been unhappy without me realizing it? Every good memory got poisoned by doubt. Every I love you became questionable. I started going through our old texts, emails, photos, looking for signs I'd missed. Maybe there were clues that she was unhappy, red flags I'd ignored. But everything seemed normal, even affectionate before that last fight. The first few months were hell. Couldn't concentrate at work, barely ate. Stopped answering calls from friends because I was tired of the same conversation over and over. Have you heard anything? Maybe she just needs space. I'm sure she'll come back when she's ready. Like she was on some spiritual journey, instead of having completely abandoned her marriage. Madison's mom called me crying about 8 months after she left. Apparently Madison's social media had gone completely dark. No posts, no activity. Like she disappeared from the internet too. Her parents were getting worried. Started wondering if something had actually happened to her. That was almost worse than thinking she'd left voluntarily. Around the 1-year mark, I realized I was stuck in limbo. Couldn't move forward with my life, while technically still married to a ghost, but couldn't get closure without knowing what actually happened. So I hired a private investigator, not because I was desperate to get her back, but because I needed concrete answers before I could file for divorce and move on. Cost me $4,000 I didn't really have, but it was worth it for peace of mind. I needed to know if she was alive, if she was in trouble, or if she just decided to start over somewhere else. The PI found some credit card activity in Texas, then Nevada, then nothing. Like she'd learned to live completely off the grid. At least now I knew she was alive and had made her choice. Time to make mine. That's when I started therapy, hoping to make sense of what the hell had happened. But all the therapist wanted to talk about was my trust issues and need for control. Like Madison leaving was proof that I was the problem, not that my wife had been living a double life. This woman kept pushing this narrative that healthy relationships require complete independence, that checking in with your spouse or knowing their passwords was toxic behavior. Made me feel like some kind of abuser for wanting transparency in my marriage. The final straw was when she suggested that Madison leaving might have been the best thing for both of us. Like I should be grateful my wife had vanished without a trace. Stopped going after that session. Wasn't about to pay someone to gaslight me into thinking I deserved to be abandoned. It took 3 years, but I finally served her with divorce papers through a legal service. Had to do it for my own sanity. Couldn't move forward while technically still married to a ghost. She never responded, never contested anything, obviously. Divorce was finalized without her showing up to court. That's when I realized she wasn't coming back. This wasn't some dramatic gesture or cry for help. She was gone for good, and I had to figure out how to build a life without her. The divorce process was weird as hell. Dividing assets with someone who doesn't exist anymore. Making decisions about property and debts, while having no idea if your ex-wife is even alive. The judge looked at me like I was crazy when I explained the situation. She just left and you haven't heard from her in 3 years? Madison had cleaned out most of our joint accounts before she disappeared, which I didn't discover until I started the asset division process. She'd been systematically moving money around for months before she left, transferring funds to accounts I didn't know about. The financial investigation revealed she'd been planning her exit for way longer than I'd realized. But the hardest part was accepting that the woman I'd loved and trusted had been lying to my face for months. Every kiss goodbye, every I love you, every conversation about our future, all of it was fake while she was plotting her escape. I started dating again around year 4, joined some apps, went on awkward first dates, where I had to explain why my marriage ended with, she just left one day. Most women heard that story and ran for the hills. Probably figured if one wife disappeared, I must be doing something wrong. Had a few relationships that lasted a couple months, but they always ended the same way. Women would start feeling like I was checking up on them too much, or being overly interested in their daily activities, asking where they were going, who they were with, what time they'd be home. Basic relationship stuff that apparently made me a controlling psycho. One woman told me straight up that my abandonment issues were too much for her to handle. Said I needed more therapy before I'd be ready for a healthy relationship. Another one accused me of trauma dumping when I tried to explain why transparency was important to me. Like wanting honesty from your partner was some kind of red flag. But I learned from every failed relationship. Started being more upfront about my expectations from the beginning, instead of springing them on people after we'd been dating for a while. Better to scare away the wrong women early than waste months building something that was never going to work. Then I met Jessica at a work conference. She's in HR for a manufacturing company about an hour away, divorced herself, so she understood the whole trust thing. When I told her about Madison on our 3rd date, she didn't immediately start analyzing what I must have done wrong. Just said it sounded terrible and asked how I was doing now. We took it slow. I was upfront about my boundaries from the beginning. Needed transparency in relationships. Wanted to know where my partner was and who they were talking to, simply because I'd learned that secrets destroy marriages. Jessica was cool with all of it. Said she appreciated dating a man who'd learned from experience. She never made me feel crazy for wanting to check in during the day or asking about her plans. Actually seemed to like that I cared enough to stay involved in her life. We established clear expectations. No hidden social media accounts. No staying in touch with exes. No mysterious charges on credit cards. Basic stuff that protects relationships from outside interference. Jessica had been through her own nightmare divorce, with a guy who'd been cheating for years while she was completely clueless. She understood that trust isn't automatic just because you love someone. The fact that I wanted to verify instead of just blindly trusting made perfect sense to her. So last year I proposed and Jessica said yes. We've been living together for 10 months, talking about kids, looking at bigger apartments. She gets along with my family. fits into my routines, never complains about my need for structure and predictability. For the first time since Madison left, I felt like I had a future worth planning for. Started believing that maybe not every woman would just bounce when things got complicated. That maybe I'd found someone who understood the value of commitment and wouldn't throw away something good over minor disagreements. Jessica and I had started looking at houses, talking about timeline for kids, making actual plans for our future together. She understood my need for financial transparency because she'd been burned by hidden debt in her first marriage. We'd review credit card statements together every month. No secrets, no surprises. It felt healthy and mature, like what adult relationships should look like. Life was finally getting good again. We had routines, we had goals, we had trust. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yesterday, I was working from home, reviewing quarterly shipping reports in my pajamas, like the exciting life I lead. And when my doorbell rang, figured it was a delivery. I'd ordered some networking equipment for the home office. Opened the door and guess who? Madison. 6 years older, but definitely her, standing next to a little girl who looked maybe 4 or 5. I literally couldn't speak, just stood there staring at this person who destroyed my life, while she asked if they could come inside. Like she'd just been gone for the weekend. The kid was holding Madison's hand and looking around like she'd never seen an apartment building before. She seemed sweet, kept asking Madison questions in this tiny voice about where we were and if this was Daddy's house. "Hey," Madison said, like we'd just seen each other yesterday. "Can we come in? We need to talk." My brain was completely frozen. 6 years of wondering if she was alive. 6 years of therapy and rebuilding and learning to trust again. And she's standing at my door like nothing happened. I managed to step aside and let them in, mainly because I didn't want to have this conversation in the hallway, where neighbors could hear. The kid immediately went to check out our TV, fascinated by the size and asking if she could watch cartoons. Madison sat down on my couch like she'd never left and started explaining where she'd been. No apology for the 6 years of silence. No acknowledgement of what she'd put me through. Just launched into her story like we were catching up over coffee. Turns out she'd been living with some crypto trader named Tyler. She'd met in an online investment group right before she left. This guy convinced her that traditional marriage was holding her back from financial independence, and they could make millions trading cryptocurrency while traveling the world. Remember those credit card charges I'd asked about? Turns out she'd been using our money to fund her crypto investments without telling me. The coffee shops were where she'd meet with Tyler to plan their business strategy. The Uber Eats orders were for him when he came to our apartment while I was at work. So, while I was at the office crunching shipping schedules, my wife was banging some crypto bro in our bed and using our credit cards to fund their get-rich-quick schemes. The violation of that hit me harder than I expected. Not just the cheating, but the calculated way she'd been stealing from me, while I trusted her completely. She'd been planning her exit for months, liquidating her 401k, selling her car, even taking out cash advances on credit cards I didn't know about, all to invest in Tyler's schemes, while I thought we were saving for our future together. The woman who called me, controlling for asking about coffee charges, had been systematically looting our finances to fund her escape for almost 3 years. They lived this Instagram lifestyle. Penthouse in Miami, trips to Costa Rica, always posting about passive income and location independence. She showed me photos on her phone like it was a vacation slideshow, while I'm thinking about how I ate cereal for dinner. Half of 2019 because money was tight after she cleaned out our accounts. The photos were nauseating. Madison in designer clothes I'd never seen, posting from expensive restaurants with Tyler, captions about living their best life and breaking free from limiting beliefs. Meanwhile, I was working overtime to cover the debt she'd left behind, eating ramen and wondering if my wife was dead in a ditch somewhere. Tyler had this whole online course business, teaching people how to escape the matrix through cryptocurrency trading. Madison became his assistant, helping him promote these $3,000 courses to desperate people looking for easy money. They were making serious cash for a while, enough to fund the lifestyle she'd always wanted, but apparently couldn't have with her boring logistics husband. She said that everything crashed in 2023. Tyler lost their investments, got investigated for securities fraud, basically abandoned her when the Fed started asking questions. Madison was stuck with massive debt and no legitimate income, too ashamed to call her family, too proud to reach out to me. Apparently Tyler had been running a classic pump and dump scheme, using his social media following to manipulate cryptocurrency prices, while secretly cashing out before the crashes. When the SEC started investigating, he threw Madison under the bus, claimed she was the mastermind while he was just an innocent promoter. Typical. Madison ended up with a six-figure debt to the IRS for unreported income, plus student loans in default, plus credit cards maxed out from funding their lifestyle. Tyler disappeared to Thailand or somewhere, leaving her holding the bag for all their financial crimes. That's when she started what she called strategic partnerships with other crypto influencers and online entrepreneurs, basically sugar daddy arrangements disguised as business relationships. She'd date these tech bros and finance guys, let them pay for her lifestyle in exchange for helping promote their courses and coaching programs. The way she described it, like it was just smart networking, instead of glorified prostitution, made me sick. This was the woman I'd married, who'd called me a psycho for wanting to know where our money went, now admitting she'd spent 4 years basically selling herself. To keep up appearances, I sat there listening to this whole sob story, wondering what the hell she expected me to do about it. Was I supposed to feel sorry for her? Hell no. I was about to tell her she needed to leave, when she hit me with the real reason she was here. "Hey, she's yours," Madison said, pointing at the kid. "Her name's Isabella. She was playing with her phone in the corner. I was pregnant when I left, but didn't know it yet." "You're her father?" Madison confidently said. My blood went cold after everything else. The cheating, the stealing, the 6 years of silence. Now she was trying to saddle me with someone else's kid. The audacity was breathtaking even for Madison. The timeline made no sense. If Madison left in April 2019 and Isabella's really 5 years old, like Madison claims, the math doesn't add up. We were actively trying to have kids back then, tracking ovulation and taking pregnancy tests regularly. There's no way she was pregnant when she left. When I pointed this out, Madison got aggressive. Started threatening to take me to court for back child support. Said she'd post our whole story on social media and make me look like the deadbeat dad who abandoned his pregnant wife. She even brought some sketchy-looking documents, claiming to show Isabella's birth certificate with my name on it. "You think you can just move on and pretend we never existed?" she said. "I've got lawyers, I've got documentation, and I've got a little girl who needs her father. You can do this the easy way or the hard way." The documents looked fake as hell. Bad printing, obvious tampering, birth certificate that had clearly been altered. But Madison was acting like she had ironclad proof, threatening to destroy my reputation if I didn't immediately start paying child support, and considering getting back together for Isabella's sake. Easy way meant acknowledging Isabella as mine, starting immediate support payments, and considering getting back together for the sake of our daughter. Hard way meant lawyers, court battles, and her destroying my reputation on every social media platform she could find. I looked at Isabella, this innocent kid caught up in her mother's manipulation, and felt sick. She kept asking if I was her daddy, and why she'd never met me before. Breaking her heart felt cruel, even if she probably wasn't mine. But I'm not the same guy Madison left behind. "I want a DNA test," I told her. "Through my lawyer, not some kit you can tamper with." Madison's face changed completely. "Fine, but while we're waiting for results, you're going to start acting like a father? Isabella needs stability, and you owe us that much." The entitlement was unreal. 6 years of radio silence, and now I owed them something. This woman had destroyed my credit, stolen my savings, abandoned our marriage, and now expected me to just pick up where we left off, because she'd finally run out of other options. She gave me a week to decide whether I wanted to do this the easy way or the hard way. Said she'd be staying at a motel downtown with Isabella. Gave me the address like I was supposed to come visit and play daddy. While we waited for test results, after they left, I just sat on my couch in complete shock. 6 years of therapy, 6 years of building boundaries, 6 years of learning to trust again. And she expects me to throw all of that away, because she decided she's tired of living off crypto scams and sugar daddy allowances. Jessica came home from work and found me staring at the wall. When I told her everything, her response was perfect. "So when do we call the lawyer?" That's the difference between a woman who stands by you and one who bolts the moment things get complicated. Jessica didn't freak out, didn't start questioning our relationship, didn't even seem surprised that my psycho ex-wife had finally surfaced with some insane manipulation scheme. "This is exactly what we prepared for," she said. "You knew she might come back someday. Now we handle it the right way." She was right. Jessica and I had talked about the possibility of Madison returning, what we'd do if she tried to disrupt our life together. We'd even consulted with a lawyer a few months after we got engaged, just to understand our legal options if my disappeared ex-wife ever resurfaced. Jessica helped me call our attorney that night, explained the situation calmly while I was still processing everything. She took notes during the call, asked the right questions, made sure we understood exactly what our next steps should be. No drama, no jealousy, just practical problem solving. "You know this kid isn't yours, right?" she said after we hung up. "The timeline doesn't work and everything about this screams scam. Madison's desperate and you're her only option left." Of course I knew, but hearing Jessica say it out loud helped me stop second-guessing myself. The math was impossible. The documents were obviously fake, and Madison's whole story was designed to manipulate me into taking responsibility for someone else's mess. Still, I wasn't about to let Madison turn this into some he said, she said drama, where she could claim I was just being vindictive. We were going to handle this the right way, with documentation that would shut down her lies permanently, getting the DNA test done through my attorney, one that can't be disputed in court. Part of me hopes Isabella isn't mine, not because I don't want kids, but because I don't want any excuse for a prostitute like Madison to stay in my life longer than necessary. My lawyer was smart about the whole thing. Instead of just agreeing to Madison's demands for immediate support, we're treating this like the fraud attempt it obviously is. Legal paternity test with chain of custody documentation. No possibility of tampering or false results. Madison tried to push back, wanted to use some cheap online kit she could control. When I insisted on doing it properly through legal channels, she got pissed and started threatening to go public with her story. Like I'm supposed to be scared of people finding out. My ex-wife is a lying scammer who abandoned our marriage to chase get-rich-quick schemes. The lawyer also advised me to document everything. Every conversation, every threat, every attempt at manipulation. If Madison is planning to wage some kind of social media campaign against me, we want evidence of her actual behavior to counter whatever sob story she's planning to tell. Even if the test comes back negative, I know this is just the beginning. Madison didn't come back because she missed me or realized what she'd lost. She came back because she needs a safety net, and I'm the only stable option left. The timing feels deliberate, showing up right when Jessica and I are getting serious. Using a kid as leverage, threatening everything I've built. The fake paternity claim is just her opening move. She knows I'm engaged, knows I've rebuilt my life, knows I'm not going to just take her back out of love or nostalgia. So she's manufacturing a crisis that forces me to stay involved in her chaos, using an innocent kid as her trump card. But here's what Madison doesn't understand. I'm not the same person she left. 6 years of therapy taught me to recognize manipulation as tactics. 6 years of dating and focusing on myself taught me what healthy boundaries look like. 6 years of building a life with Jessica taught me what real partnership actually means. The old naive me would have panicked, would have started paying support immediately just to avoid conflict, would have bent over backward trying to do the right thing for Isabella, even if she wasn't mine. The new me sees this for exactly what it is. A desperate scam from someone who's finally run out of other people to exploit. Madison's probably betting that I'll cave under social pressure, that I won't want to look like the bad guy who refuses to help his daughter. She's counting on me being the same accommodating pushover, who let her clean out our bank accounts while I worried about seeming controlling. Either way, I'm ready for whatever game she wants to play. Boundaries maintained. Lawyer on speed dial. The woman who called me a controlling freak and disappeared into the night doesn't get to waltz back in and destroy my life twice. The DNA test will prove what we already know. Isabella isn't mine, Madison is lying. And this whole thing is just another scheme from someone who's made a career out of manipulating people. When that happens, we'll have legal proof of her fraud attempt and can move forward with our lives. But even if somehow against all logic and timeline evidence, Isabella turns out to be mine, I'm still not taking Madison back. Being a father doesn't mean being a doormat. And my kid deserves better than watching her parents enable each other's dysfunction. I'll keep you updated. Final update. Hey guys, got the results back a few days ago. And surprise, surprise, Isabella isn't mine. Not even close. The lab tech actually laughed when he called with the results. Said it was one of the most obvious non-matches he'd seen in years. Madison had been blowing up my phone all week, demanding updates, threatening to go public if I didn't start support payments immediately. Time to end this once and for all. Called Madison and told her to meet us at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory with witnesses. She showed up with Isabella and that same fake victim energy, probably expecting me to cave and play daddy anyway. Well, she said, like she was doing me a favor by showing up. The 100% match, I said, sliding the official lab results across the table. Not my kid, not even close. Watched her face go through about 5 different emotions before settling on rage. Those tests can be wrong. Labs make mistakes all the time. Cut the crap, Madison. We both know you've been running scams for 6 years. This is just another one. That's when Jessica spoke up. Time to go, take your kid and your fake documents and find someone else to Madison lost it. Started screaming about how I was abandoning my daughter. How I was just like every other deadbeat who couldn't handle responsibility. The whole coffee shop was staring. You know what's funny? I said. When I told you to get a real job 6 years ago, I meant like customer service or retail. I didn't mean become a literal hooker. Her face went white then red. You don't know what I had to do to survive. I know exactly what you did. You told me yourself. Wouldn't a strategic partnerships with crypto bros? That's just fancy talk for prostitution. She started making threats then. Said she'd ruin my reputation. Tell everyone I was abusive. Make sure Jessica knew what kind of monster she was marrying. Classic desperate moves from someone who'd run out of options. Jessica just laughed. Good luck with that. We've got 6 years of documentation showing you abandoned your marriage to chase get-rich-quick schemes. Plus recorded conversations of you trying to commit paternity fraud. But sure, tell people he's the problem. Madison grabbed Isabella and stormed out, screaming that this wasn't over, that she'd make us pay for humiliating her. Haven't heard from her since. Lawyer says if she tries any social media campaigns or harassment, we've got enough evidence to destroy her in court. 6 years of wondering what happened. And it turns out she was exactly what I thought. A selfish con artist who burned every bridge and finally ran out of people to scam. Jessica and I are back to planning our wedding. House hunting resumes next week. Life goes on, and some people just aren't meant to be part of it. Sometimes the trash takes itself out.